We are having a wonderful time fishing throughout Israel. And you know, on this trek of our trip, we're going right by Jerusalem, which is the heart of Israel. And it's situated roughly halfway between its northern border of Israel, near Lebanon, and the Red Sea, which we'll be fishing tomorrow. Jerusalem has a population of just under 1 million people. And if you're going to be coming to Jerusalem, it's one thing to see the new modern Jerusalem and all the buildings and stay in the hotels and visit the shops. But you have to go inside Old Jerusalem because you're going back in time. And inside Old Jerusalem, there are different quarters. The Armenian quarter, the Christian quarter, the Jewish quarter. And it's such an amazing flavor of cultures that it has to be part of your experience here in Israel.
We'll be heading along the coast today, driving northwards towards the city of Caesarea, which is going to be our first destination. We'll try to do the fishing at Herod's Palace, at the remains of Herod's Palace. I'm guessing that it's a great place because I see fishermen all the time there. There's another place where we could fish, which is right on where the palace is. These are mainly the ruins over here on the rift. This is where I always see the fishermen. But you can see some of the remains, okay? We can see the Crusader city that is here. We can see the Roman Byzantine city that is here. We could see the Hippodrome, which is where the horse races were done, and the theater that is to our left, which is probably the most important theater over here. Remember again, Festus and Felix giving Paul being imprisoned over here in the city of Caesarea. Right over here, Caesarea Maritima, and actually wanted to be judged by Caesar himself because he was a very unique characteristic, because Paul actually was Jewish, but he was a Roman citizen, which was not a very common combination altogether.
Wow! Is that dramatic or what? That's the mighty Mediterranean. And we're here in Caesarea. We're just up from Tel Aviv, maybe 20 minutes in Israel. And this is an amazing place. There's so many internationals here that are checking out all of the ruins and all the archaeological sites. You know, Caesarea, going about 2,000 years and even earlier than that, was a very important port city. And this is actually the entrance of the harbor where we're fishing, so there's lots of structure here. Besides the actual tourists, you can see Israelis here with very long rods. And they're using small hooks and trying to catch little species of pinfish using the inside of shellfish. And those fish that they catch will probably be their dinner. Barb and I are here hunting for some larger fish like jacks or barracuda that will cruise in along these shorelines and into the harbor. This is such a magnificent place. You know, whether you look down the coast or up the coast, it is so dramatic and it's so rich in history. I'm going to check out these fishermen. You know, if you're traveling in northern Israel from the Mediterranean for somewhere like Haifa or Mount Carmel, and you head east, you come across the city of Nazareth. Today has about 70,000 population, but what they have in the city of Nazareth is a recreation of a first century village, or how people lived. And they actually have people that do all the different chores and activities that they would have done 2,000 years ago. Where I'm sitting is very interesting. Behind me is a wine press. You might think, well, it's just a rock. Believe it or not, this is an area that was actually used 2,000 years ago for crushing grapes. People would wash their feet, they would wash this area out, they would put the grapes here, and they would crush them. The juice would run down here in this natural vat. And the air, which has yeast particles in it, would literally ferment the wine. And they would scoop that out and probably put it in very large vessels. And then they would store it, and then they would have to actually cap it, use cork or something to stop the fermentation at some point. So things were done so naturally, yet very efficiently. Let me take you to some other parts of the village. You're going to be very impressed with what you'll see. You know, 2,000 years ago, the habitations were very simple. They were constructed out of the local materials, which was some of the limestone, and then used with mortar to create these beautiful homes. And the women would be busy working. Maybe they might be working in textiles, as this woman is, and maybe making blankets or different clothing and so on. The storage area would have food that could be kept for a while, so maybe things that could be dried, like herbs, garlic, and so on. And then the sleeping area would be slightly elevated. As you can see here, there's a reenactment of a carpenter, and he's working away and he's making some agricultural implements, and he's using tools that would have been handmade and everything else would have been made by hand. And a lot of times the shepherds would take the sheep where they could feed, and they would be out day and night for many days, especially on the hillsides. The sheep don't have much to feed on, so they got to cover a lot of territory, just sparse grass, because really a lot of the area here in Israel was desert and still is today. But today there's a lot of irrigation, and they've got beautiful vegetation growing and all kinds of produce and so on. But this was a very common sight 2,000 years ago. When you're on a fishing trip here in Israel, there's so much to see. We left Jerusalem this morning and started heading south. We're about 100 kilometers away, and we're actually at the lowest spot on earth. We're 500 meters below sea level, and we're just west of the Dead Sea. So as I'm speaking to you, I see the Dead Sea before me, and we're just about to go up and explore Masada. This is a very famous fortress built by King Herod about 2,000 years ago. And it really is one of the wonders of the world. You're going to see it in just a moment.
As we're right up on top of Masada over here, although we're still below sea level, we're in one of the most amazing fortifications that was built by King Herod. It was built over here in the year 37 BC in order to have a palace and a place of refuge in times of trouble. First of all, the palace that was built by King Herod himself was built in the northern part of this area in order to isolate himself, so if there's an attack, the worst place, or actually the best place that he can hide, would be in the northern area. We found water systems that could sustain 40,000 cubic meters of water altogether. We found storerooms over here, 14 storerooms altogether, that could store an abundance of food, mainly dried food that was here, wine, olive oil, dried fruits and vegetables that were placed over here. Due to the fact that this is a dry area, no humidity, and no humans that were here, things were preserved on top of Masada in mint condition. You will see that everything below the black line is the original, and everything above it is a reconstruction. But coming to the main story of Masada, we're talking about the first revolt against Rome, starting in the year 66 AD. The 10th Legion, led by Da Silva, was the one that gathered all around the area with over 5,000 soldiers against 963 people that were here, coming mainly from Jerusalem and from the north. They gathered over here, and the main idea was that we're going to fight until our bitter death even against Rome.
Wow, we've been trolling out here on the Mediterranean and everything just went crazy. What I've done is taken some of my heaviest actions of freshwater gear, using it here to troll. Oh, okay. Isn't that a gorgeous fish? Right here from the Red Sea, Eilat, Israel. Let's see what it is. It's a, oh, look at this. Look at, Barbara,
I got
you
the
win.
Fish of the day.
That was some action. That was the first time that I've actually had 5 fish trolling like this. We landed all 5 fish. Well done. David, excellent. Asher, well done. Roger, Captain, you did a great job putting us on those fish. Okay, can we go back on top of them, JJ? Perfect, okay.